Mr. Lloyd, good morning. How are we?
I'm doing great, mate. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Very well indeed. Getting ready for the wedding. Only,
Yeah, exciting times.
yeah, 10 weeks left and the big day is here. But yeah, I just want to start by saying thank you, man. I appreciate you jumping on and yeah, carving out some time this morning. Just want to kind of manage expectations, very, very laid back. Ultimately, just want to talk about your experience of being in the program the last 6 months. Going to go through kind of where you were when we started, kind of what problems you were facing, and where you are now after, I think it's 5 months coming to the sixth
Yes,
final
five
month.
months. I started beginning of December, so where are we now? Mid start of May. So yeah, 5 months.
Amazing. Perfect. So before we dive on in, what I'd love you to do is to just introduce yourself to anybody that is watching this video.
Sure thing. Yeah, so I'm James Lloyd. I am 50 years old, and I started coaching 2 years ago. So I trained as a coach with Andy Ramage, who is quite big in the alcohol-free space. I've got a diploma in positive psychology and alcohol-free coaching, and I kind of coached on the side for about a year and a half alongside my day job. I had a 25-year corporate career, was head of sales at Nintendo. But probably when I got to like my mid 40s or so, I was thinking, what does the second half of my career look like? What do I want to do for the next kind of 20 years?
Hmm.
And yeah, like most people, I kind of wanted to do something different. I wanted to work for myself, wanted to do something that was a bit more fulfilling, and I hate the term give back, but basically that something that kind of made you feel a bit better about yourself rather than just doing something just to earn money. So kind of got into coaching, and I've gone alcohol, just I guess to rewind back a little bit, I've gone alcohol free when I was 46, which kind of quite inspired me to go on a bit of a health journey. So becoming a coach to help people change their relationship with alcohol was a natural fit. So I did that on the side for about a year and a half, which would have taken me up to, well, about 6 months ago. And I've been kind of pottering around on LinkedIn for, yeah, about a year and a half or so. Always had clients, but sometimes it was getting down to maybe one client. And initially, I'd had a fair bit of, moderate success on Instagram and sorry, on LinkedIn in terms of generating clients. Coaching was going brilliantly. Always had really good outcome for clients, but I think over the last kind of year or so, LinkedIn was getting a lot harder because as AI has kind of increased as well, because because LinkedIn is mainly text based. There's just a lot of AI slop on LinkedIn, and it was really hard to get engagement, really hard to stand out. And by the time we started working together, um, you know, my my inbound inquiries, as it were, from LinkedIn were really had ground to a halt. I probably hadn't had anything for several months, and I was kind of just surviving off clients that I'd signed prior to that. And I've been doing a podcast as well for about a year with somebody who was on your program, Steve. And when Steve and I set up the podcast last July, I had way more clients than Steve. You didn't have any. And in the space of me sat back and watching Steve work with you, he completely surpassed me. And I went from having absolutely no clients, and Steve can basically he couldn't manage his diary. He was so busy. And I was thinking, all along, I was thinking, because obviously you'd worked with somebody else prior to Steve as well that I know, Mike. He's another great guy, and he'd had success as well. So I was kind of watching from the sidelines, and I was thinking, I'll let Steve try this guy out, see what it's like, see how he gets on. And yeah, in the space between Steve starting with you in June or July time last year to Christmas when I started with you, I just saw Steve just accelerate massively. So, and I knew I was coming to the end of my corporate career at Christmas. I'd come to an agreement where I'd stay on until Christmas, and then Nintendo would give me a golden handshake, as it were. So I was kind of going it alone from January. So
Mhm.
literally the day I finished at Nintendo, I started working with you.
Oh, was it the
And
same day?
I think it's a day after,
Or
but yeah,
was it?
literally it was the day. And I'm really glad that I did that because your program is so thorough and so robust and well built out. I couldn't have done it justice, I don't think, if I'd been doing it, full time. I mean, I'm sure people, I know people do, but
Mhm.
I think I was able. It came along at the right time for me because there was an awful lot that I wanted to throw myself into this.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, so by come this was obviously around sort of beginning of December, but I think once I'd done a lot of the learnings and gone through all of the content that you provide, which is what, over 40 40 videos
Hmm.
at the beginning, which kind of get you up and running, which I thought were phenomenal. So I just consumed all of that during December and early January. And then I started on Instagram because your program is obviously Instagram based. You don't really use LinkedIn as much, but so I was pretty much starting from scratch because my entire social media up to that point had been through LinkedIn.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
I'd love to know a little bit more about that because obviously we get a lot of people who help, business owners, directors, executives, and one of the first things that they say is, "Oh, I think all of my clients are going to be kind of on LinkedIn."
yeah, I was
They're
of that
kind of
opinion.
apprehensive of doing Instagram. So, yeah, what were your kind of initial thoughts when we said, "Yeah, we're going to focus primarily on
Yeah,
Instagram"?
exactly that. I mean, again, I kind of knew already because I kind of watched Steve, so I knew exactly what I was getting when I signed on with you. None of it came as a surprise, and I was ready to make that leap from
Mhm.
LinkedIn onto Instagram because, like I said, LinkedIn was just getting, really wasn't delivering for me. But I had that thought as well that
Yeah.
it's this is a professional thing that I'm doing. It should be on a professional site. But the problem is with LinkedIn is it doesn't really like you selling things.
Mhm.
It's not. It wants you to add value and insight and start conversations and all this kind. And that's all fine, but you can't put anything out there to try and you know to sell yourself.
Yeah.
Whereas Instagram is of course very different, and obviously the ad tools on Instagram are just head and shoulders better than LinkedIn. LinkedIn really is pretty pathetic when it comes to its advertising capabilities. But it did mean literally starting from scratch. So when I start, I had like 30 followers, on
Yeah, I
Instagram when I first
remember the
started,
brand new one.
and I'll be honest, the first couple of months or so, it was pretty not hard going, but you obviously have to build a bit of a platform,
Mhm.
and no one's going to work with somebody who's got like 12 reels. You have to build a bit of a base first.
Mhm.
So I did that, and I think a lot of the structure that you provide in terms of what to post, when to post, what to talk about was incredibly useful.
Yeah.
And I just kind of threw myself into that for a few months, really, and gradually built it all up. And then it kind of reached a bit of a tipping point where it kind of went a bit crazy.
Yeah, it did.
Yeah.
It went super crazy, and I'm looking forward to talking about those kind of results because that's kind of the stuff that people they want to know, like how many calls did you get and all of that stuff, which we'll get to. But
Okay.
what I'd love to know and understand is, you've seen Steve and you've seen Mike that were kind of doing really well. Aside from that, what kind of prompted you to work with myself?
Well, I knew when I left my old job that I had a bit of a redundancy package, and I thought if you're going to do this full time, if you're going to make a career out of coaching, you need to invest in yourself because you can't be a coach and then
Mhm.
not invest in coaching yourself. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah,
So, and obviously I'd seen what there's a lot of people out there who do what you do.
100%.
But like you talk about in your videos, and I see it all the time. We're constantly getting bombarded with people saying, "Oh, I can 10x your business" and all this kind of bullshit. And you're a bit like, there's a million people out there doing it, so it's
Yeah.
very hard to cut through a lot of the noise to people who've actually can make a genuine impact. And
Mhm.
I'd gone on a similar course the previous January, and it was absolute shit. It was
Was it?
really was rubbish, and I basically demanded my money back, and it was I think it was about 4 grand, and it was
Mhm.
just rubbish. So I said, look, this is what you're selling is absolute rubbish. I mean, it worked for some people, but it wasn't suitable for what I was doing. And I
Yeah.
think part of the problem was as well there was a figurehead within that business who'd set the whole thing up, who's kind of your equivalent, but basically was just completely invisible. Did all the promotional stuff on social media,
Yeah.
but was completely invisible in terms of the day to day stuff.
Mhm.
And I could not relate to this person whatsoever,
Yeah.
and that really kind of irritated me. So I think working with you is a lot different because you're very. I mean, I don't know where you get your energy and your time from because you're always available. Obviously, you've got a lot of clients on the program, all absolutely killing it from what I can see, and you're always available. And I think you've clearly built a structure over a number of years that facilitates that. But I've never felt that that you wouldn't come back to me kind of quickly, and you weren't. I don't. Again, I think it's quite remarkable how you do it. But we get on as well. Even the fact that you're a Liverpool fan and I'm an Evertonian, I can still tolerate you despite that. And I say that in all good humour because you're sat here in royal blue, and obviously we have a bit of fun about that. We don't talk about football
Yeah.
too much, but you clearly see we get on. You're a great guy. You're really good to work with, and hugely passionate about what you do.
Yeah.
And you really get it. So I think that really appeals to me. I wouldn't, and obviously I've signed on with you again to sort of carry on working with you for a further
Mhm.
6 months because it's gone brilliantly, and we get on great, and I really buy into what you're doing, and I trust you as as a coach. So
No,
yeah,
I
it's
appreciate
been
that.
real good.
No, I appreciate the feedback, and I think, we've noticed that I've noticed that myself being part of these mentorships, like you said, there's you get sold by one person and it's like, oh yeah, and then you go in and you don't actually work with them. Whereas for me, like, and I had this conversation with someone who just joined the program yesterday. She said, Sean, like, how do you deal with like 70 odd clients? But again, it's like once we get them to a certain stage, they need less and less support. Like a lot of the time, it's okay, getting them set up, building the foundations, getting
Mm.
everything rocking and rolling. And then, they'll need less and less support because it's like, okay, cool, I get it now. I get what I need to be doing every day and every week and every month.
Yeah, I mean that is exactly the same as how I coach people. So
Mhm.
when people that first kind of cut 2 or 3 weeks, when people are taking a break from the booze, that's where they need the most support. But my program is to support people to take 100 days off the booze.
Yeah,
But really, 80% of the time is required in those first few weeks, and
yeah.
then after that, it really is just maintenance and just being available and providing support and accountability,
Mhm.
and that's kind of it. And so yeah, there's a lot of parallels there.
100%. Yeah, 100%. I mean, we got lots of alcohol-free and sober coaches that we work with. Um, and yeah, I think the cool thing is, we're working with sober coaches, alcohol-free coaches, whatever they want to be called, but they all have kind of different niches and things.
Mm.
So what I'd love to know and understand with yourself is what were your kind of, I know you've just mentioned then the support and the promptness in terms of getting back to you has been great. But what were your kind of initial thoughts when you came into the program? Because you'd spoken about the previous mentorship wasn't a good experience. So talk me through your first few weeks.
Yeah, I think, like I said, I was surprised how readily available you were,
Hmm.
because that was the complete opposite of working with other people.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I think well, for me, it was definitely support in kind of getting set up on Instagram. That was pretty big. And I already had a fair idea of how your program worked anyway from watching Steve kind of go through it.
Yeah.
Yes, because I guess it was kind of quite unusual, really, because I didn't watch any of your stuff on Instagram. I don't- you know, wasn't really on Instagram at that point. I
Hmm.
didn't watch any of the testimonials. I didn't really know anything. I hadn't seen any of your own material as such. I
Hmm.
literally just saw it secondhand from Steve because we spoke every week,
Yeah.
and he was telling me what was going on, and I'm working with Sean. He's got me doing this, and he's got me doing that, and I was a bit like, at the time, I was kind of yeah, I'm not sure I buy into that, but then I saw the result. I saw the results, and I was like. Right. Okay. And I think I guess that takes away a lot of the not knowing because when you're putting money down, you're not really sure what you're going to get. It's the same with any coach. You don't know what you're going to get. If you can show people the results, then that's powerful. So I kind of had that with him.
Yeah.
Do
That
you see
makes
what I mean? I could see, and I remember saying to my wife, "Look, I can see with Steve that this is what's happened over 6 months, and that gives me enormous confidence because if he can do it, then I can do it."
100%.
Because we're from very similar backgrounds, and I just thought, and I could, so having that visibility of knowing that it was a process
Hmm.
and a system that worked, and obviously knowing that it worked for Mike as well, that also really helps when you start to sort of doubt because it's not always easy, and there are things that don't always go to plan.
Absolutely.
But knowing that this is a structure that has worked for many other people,
Yeah.
just kind of keeps you going when you are kind of questioning yourself because everyone does that. Everyone questions, I'm not sure I'm cut out for this, and
Yeah.
why, because half the problem I think with what we do and being on Instagram is comparison is the thief of joy, and
Hmm.
it's very easy to look at what everybody else is doing and think, oh shit, why am I not doing that? And, and that when that can get overwhelming sometimes. So
Yeah.
kind of not seeing this roadmap of okay, here's how we get from A to B, which is something that not just that I saw from Steve, but as soon as I started the program, I could see this very clear roadmap,
Yeah.
very well structured, very well organized, very tried and tested, and that's powerful.
I think you also came in, like you just mentioned then, you had the right mindset to start off with. Obviously, you've done work on yourself, you quit the booze, you got, started taking care of yourself. But with the mindset of, okay, well, if it worked for them, it can work for me. Like what I see a lot of the time is, well, what if it doesn't work for me? Or I don't know if it'll work for me. Whereas if you'd flip the script entirely, okay, yeah, if they can do it, I can do it, then you will make that true, right? You'll do the work, you'll take the actions, you'll reach out for help, support, and guidance because, like you said, you've seen it happen time and time again. And
Mm,
yeah, it would kind of seem, I guess, unreasonable that, you wouldn't get the results if you did the work, right? So, yeah,
100%.
you came in with the right mindset. And again, you are very coachable. You would come, oh, what about this? And I'd be like, okay, here's what you need to do. And you'd go away and execute. So
Mm,
let's obviously, you've been 5 months in the program. You've obviously decided to renew with us. Let's kind of look at the breakthroughs, the pounds and pence, the dollars and cents that you've kind of experienced over the last it was last month, wasn't it? So yeah,
yeah.
share with
Yeah.
everyone how you got on last month.
Yeah. So, I mean, time will tell what last month was, but last month was pretty insane.
Hmm.
And I think there was a number of things that kind of came together at the same time, that created a bit of a perfect storm. But I guess, as I was mentioning earlier, I wasn't on Instagram in any meaningful way. So I spent a couple of months doing a few videos, doing like one a day, which is what I used to do on Instagram as well with written content. Sorry, on in LinkedIn with written
Hmm.
content. So I was kind of quite used to posting once a day. That was fine. And it was kind of gradually just ticking up gradually. Did a couple of ads, which again were okay. At the time, I thought, oh, this is great. It's bringing in 10 leads a day. Sorry, 10 follows a day. I thought this is brilliant. Um, because I hadn't had that before, but obviously I was paying for that. But then we started doing these talking head
Hmm.
reels, which was part of your research that you've done, I think, over the previous few months. Which was, and I could, you set this challenge of right, okay, you want everybody to do one Yap video a day,
Hmm.
and then the penny kind of dropped to me at that point because, first of all, I like that because I found it easy because I don't have a problem because we do a podcast as well. I don't have a problem just getting on a camera and just talking unscripted, unedited, and I actually much prefer that because it takes a lot of all of I actually get a bit fixated with trying to get all the editing perfect and all this, and it's just like no one cares.
Yeah.
No one really cares about all of the editing and stuff, and that just was just a complete time drain for me.
Hmm.
So being able to just have license, just to record, just pick up the camera, record, stick the captions on, post, job done. I was like, right, okay, I can do that, and I can do that rather than doing it once a day. I was like, okay, let's commit to 3 times a day, because what my thought process was that if you want people to get to know you quicker, then show them more of you.
Hmm.
And it just kind of followed to me that if you're trying to attach, if you're trying to attract clients, who are going to be paying multiple £1,000s to work with you,
Hmm.
they've got to trust you and they've got to know you. And having the podcast helps with that. But I thought the more I can show people, what I'm about, the better. So I thought I can see the value of doing this. So I committed to doing the 3 Yap videos a day. But then quite early on in that, pretty much in the first week, I had one video that just kind of completely blew up, and I still don't entirely know why. And I tried to kind of replicate that again, and it's not really quite worked. But that's done like 120,000 views in a month, which is just mental. And that one video pulled in, I think, about 2,000 followers organically, and
Wow.
completely organically.
Hmm.
And I literally was just drowning. I was completely drowned for about 2 weeks. I was just completely drowning. And then another one popped up a week later, which did 100,000.
Hmm.
And again, I don't know. It's all to do with the algorithm. I don't know. But I was still posting 3 times a day and doing stories as well, which I think at the time sounds quite overwhelming to people. That oh my god, you're going to post 5 things, bits of content a day. That's really difficult. But one thing that I observed is when I first started posting on LinkedIn, I'd committed to posting once a week,
Yeah.
and I was finding that difficult.
Hmm.
But then when I said, okay, I'm going to post once a day, then once a week became very, very easy. And then once a day then became routine. I think the higher you set the bar, the previous bar all of a sudden becomes very, very easy. So
Hmm.
I think once you set it in maybe it's just how my mind works, but once I decided, right, I'm doing 3, then that was it. I was doing it. It was non-negotiable. And I think just showing up at that regularly, I think definitely helped me grow an audience quite quickly, and it was quite an engaged audience.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, and then so off the back of those 2 really big reels, and some of the smaller ones, over the course of April, I booked I think it was 35 sales calls in April. And this is all organic. So I'd
Hmm.
switched the ads off by this point. I've known ads running now for about 2 months.
Hmm.
All of it is organic. And over April, over those 35 sales calls, it took quite a while. So actually, you'll remember this. So actually, it took quite a while for the sales calls to come through because the first
Yeah.
2 weeks I was having all of these followers and I just couldn't convert any of them to sales calls. And at one point, I'd had about 2,000 followers in a week and a half. And I booked about two sales calls, and I was like, Sean, what the fuck's going on? This
Hmm.
is ridiculous. This is embarrassing. This is
I
really,
remember.
really embarrassing.
Yeah.
And then something's just flipped. Actually, I think it was probably when you said to me, okay, just you need to be more direct. You need to
Hmm.
be more direct with them. Stop pissing around with trying to have like long conversations, which was why I was drowning.
Yeah.
And that and being more direct made a huge difference. And all of a sudden, I just started booking like I booked like 7 sales calls in one day, one time. It was mental. And then so I started going through those sales calls, and I converted out of the first 10 sales calls, I closed 8 of them at about 50% more than what I was originally planning to charge.
Hmm.
So that was just like, oh my God, happy days. But then after that, something kind of went a bit awry, and then I'm still trying to fix this. And then the next like 10 sales calls, I didn't close one.
Hmm.
And I was a bit like, oh my God. Well, actually, I wasn't actually that bothered because I already had 8, and that was it massively exceeded my expectations. I
Yeah.
remember saying to you when we first started, I'll be happy if I close like just 5 grand a week is
Yeah.
sorry, 5 grand a month is fine because that would be replacing my salary.
Hmm.
Um, but then we kind of did that in a day. And I was a bit like, all right, okay, we only just set the bar a little bit higher now. Uh, and that April, it closed, I think, about 18 and a half grand. And I would have been happy with 5. That's what I said to you in December. 5 would be plenty.
Hmm.
Um, so then it kind of went to 18, and I was just a bit like, whew. And then I closed a couple more, which got me to 10. And that's as many people as I want to coach at any one time. So I was kind of happy with that. And I think subconsciously that affected some of the next batch of sales calls because I was trying to put people on a wait list, and that wasn't really working. And I was also, I think, overselling on the sales calls as well. So I literally was giving it away on the sales call,
Hmm.
and people were afterwards were a bit like, "Oh, I feel totally inspired by this guy. I'll go off and do it on my own."
Yeah.
So those sort of little things were starting to kind of creep in. But yeah, but this kind of period at the beginning of April was just absolutely insane.
Yeah.
You know,
Incredible. Like,
yeah,
Eight,
it was,
18 and a half K. Yeah, phenomenal. And it's really interesting as well because like you quite rightly mentioned, and I was going to mention this, you were struggling to get the calls booked. And
yeah.
we see this all of the time, right? We can help people with the ads and the content, but then it's okay, well, how are the conversations? And I remember just having that conversation. I think we jumped on. I was like, cool, do this, do
Mm.
this. And then you started being more direct. And then I remember where I was when you messaged me and said, "Oh, I've booked in 7 sales calls today." And
Yeah, it's
there's
crazy.
always a moment where it just clicks and it's like,
Yeah,
ah,
you're right.
okay, I see where I was kind of going
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah,
So,
that's the thing. When you just do it on your own, you don't have that insight and that very slight nuance of just be a bit more direct. You haven't got time to piss around with all these people.
mhm.
Just be direct. But and it med a difference. And literally overnight, it made a difference because I was tearing my hair out for about a week. A bit like, why, because you were saying, you need to put this on the Wins channel, tell people about all these followers. And I was a bit like, I'm not going to say that because I haven't closed any calls. It's
Yeah,
embarrassing.
yeah,
But then that one slight shift, made such a big difference.
yeah,
And
amazing.
yeah. Mm.
Thanks for sharing, man. That's yeah, that's pretty cool. 18 and a half K. And this is like obviously now you've just mentioned we're physically having to put people on a wait list because I physically can't coach any more people until you finish coaching these
Mm.
people, which is amazing. And that makes sense, obviously, why we've decided to kind of continue to take things to the next level. So
Definitely.
with that being said, then I'm very curious to know a little bit more about kind of we speak to a lot of people on Instagram, on YouTube, people reach out to us all of the time. What sort of advice would you give to anybody who is perhaps considering working with us?
Well, I think you've got to look at it in terms of a return on investment, um, because I paid for working with you, for 6 months. I paid for that within a couple of sales, really. And it's not just the monetary value. It's I think your entire method and the whole ecosystem that you've set up around self sabotage and things. It's not just a case of, well, okay, here's how to here's how to 10x your your business, those type of things. Obviously, there's a huge amount of business support and advice in there as well, but there's also a broader kind of
Hmm.
life advice that comes from the self sabotage and stuff. Which I remember when we first spoke, I was a bit like, nah, I don't need that. But as soon as I started doing it, I was a bit like, all right, yeah, I think maybe he's onto something here. But yeah, I think it's easy for me to say because I had Steve and I could see that it was a success, and it's very difficult to say, well, look, just you know, just jump in, just trust your instincts and just do it. But it really was, it's hard to say that because I could see anyway.
Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, even if you don't really have to close a huge amount of business to kind of cover the cost of working with you, I don't think.
Hmm.
Like I said, I wouldn't if I didn't see huge value in it, and I wouldn't have reinvested to sort of carry on,
Of course.
for another 6 months. It's kind of that simple, really. I mean, if you want evidence of whether or not it works, there it is. So you've just re-signed.
Hmm.
And I know, lots of other people have done that as well. But I think also the community aspect that you have a really great bunch of people that work with you. And so we had the event in Manchester a couple of month ago, which was just lovely to meet everybody. And
Yeah, that was cool.
yeah, I think you have a lot of like-minded people, and community is really important, and being around other people that are doing the same thing. Because I think the other thing that's actually really relevant as well is, I think for most people who want to become successful, want to become professional coaches, you're doing that's quite isolating because all of a sudden, particularly if you've come from a corporate environment, as I had, you're used to having colleagues around and you're used to like having office banter and chit chat. And
Yeah.
when you go, it's all very well to sort of think, oh, it'd be great to work for myself and have my own business, and oh, that'd be wonderful. And there are a lot of benefits to it, but it is quite isolating and you're kind of on your own. So I see a lot of other people that are on the program, and I've got a call with somebody this afternoon actually who asked if I'd chat to them, give them a bit of help. It feels like having colleagues, and it feels like having people around you who are doing the same thing, and that's really important. I think there's a
Yeah.
lot of value in that.
No, absolutely. And final question I want to ask is obviously, we get on well. You've mentioned the community there, the in-person stuff, the portal, the trainings, and obviously the accessibility to myself. And there's no right or wrong answer here. Purely, I'm asking from a selfish point of view, to be honest. But what would you say has been the most useful thing for you that you've taken over the last kind of 6 months?
I mean, there are a lot. Um, I think, well, clearly the biggest shift for me has been Instagram, because I was like languishing away on LinkedIn with no clear strategy of what the hell I was doing. It was just like, oh, what am I going to post today? Put that up, and without any kind of filter or anyone to kind of look at what I was doing. So I think being able to move on to Instagram, get that up and running, and actually the funnel system that you work with as well, which is obviously a marketing funnel, is extremely well known, anyway, in terms of the three parts of the marketing funnel. I think having that in the background, and the way that you identify where the problems are. So okay, is it a case that is it top of funnel?
Mhm.
Are we getting people? Are we attracting people? To the page? Okay, yes or no? Okay, that's fine. And then the middle of funnel. Are we nurturing people? And then the sales piece. So being able to sort of look at. I remember you saying once on a call, if there's a problem, we just identify where it is and we just tweak that bit. And that kind of clicked in my head when you sort of said that. So even if it's not working at certain times, it doesn't concern me because it just requires a little bit of analysis of, okay, whereabouts in the funnel are we? Where's the bit that's broken, that's not working, that we need to tweak a little bit? And
Yeah.
that's like what you said about, earlier about being direct with people. Yeah, you looked at the situation and thought, okay, everything's working right here. It's a bit like being a car mechanic. You
Mhm.
kind of look at the whole holistic piece and you just make the tweaks where necessary. So I
Yeah.
think having that, that just changes everything.
Yeah. No, I appreciate that. And it's always helpful to kind of get that feedback. When it comes down to the funnel, obviously, we can set it up, but as you just quite rightly kind of mentioned, yes, of course, we can set up, we can have ads, we can have conversations, we can have calls, but all it takes is for us to, I tell people all of the time, if in doubt, we need to zoom out and look at things
Mm.
objectively. Because as human beings, we're emotional beings. We can kind of make decisions based on emotion. Sales call doesn't go well. Oh, this is a problem. This is a problem. Give it a couple of hours, maybe the next day, we're able to zoom out and look at the bigger picture. So, yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate that feedback there.
I probably would add to that as well. Is you because you have a very very clear structure
Mhm.
that I think most people can do. I don't it obviously you have a lot of self doubt about, oh, can I do this? Can I set up a business? Can I be a coach? But some people are stronger in different aspects than others. So some people are really good with social media, some people are good at selling, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
N Most people aren't good at everything because coaching and marketing are two very, very different things.
Hmm.
And there's some parts of your process that I use quite rigidly. There's other parts that I don't really use at all. But that might be different for Steve or for
Yeah.
Mike or for somebody else. So, but the point is you provide this entire structure that most people can do.
Yeah.
If they need the full support and they need the whole thing very, very structured, then that structure is there. But I
Yeah.
think for most people, they probably dial up the bits that they're not quite so proficient at and dial down some of the other bits where they're more comfortable.
Yeah.
So a lot of your Instagrams, everything that relates to Instagram, I tend to use kind of quite closely. Whereas the sales piece, I don't use so much because I'm,
Yeah.
from a sales background myself. So it's
Exactly.
very adaptable to people's existing skills. But even if you think, well, I don't really know what I'm doing with any of it, well, that's fine because you've got the whole thing right here, and you can choose from that menu what you want to dial up and what you want to dial down.
Absolutely. James, it's been a pleasure. Where can people find you if they would like to find out more about you and how you can help?
Well, I'm alcohol free coach underscore on Instagram, and there's a guy who's got alcohol free coach as his name, and he's not using it. I've been offering him money to try and get him to buy it. So you've got to stick the underscore at the end, which really grinds my gears.
Okay.
I've also got a website as well, which is alcoholfreecoach.com, which is all mine. But
Amazing. What about the podcast?
the podcast, yes. So the podcast is me and Steve that I've spoken about earlier, and it's called the Alcohol Free Revolution. We've been going for a year as of June 2026, and yeah, we've had some incredible guests on, and yeah, we'll probably talk about a bit more about that in the future, really, how we utilize that and how that comes into the whole ecosystem. But yeah, that's me.
Pleasure. James, thanks for your
Absolute
time.
pleasure. Yeah, you
Take
too,
care.
mate. Take care.